So, welcome everyone. We are here to listen Ravi Bhattarai's talk related with align customer requirements with developer with C4 model.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, and good afternoon. I guess all of you are good? Yes. Great. This afternoon, basically, I would want to interact with you and learn from you, as well as share my experiences, what I have faced last 12 plus years working and implementing ERP in various setups in different geography in Asia and then here in North America since last year. Most of the time I find one big challenge when we are implementing is customer, they have the requirement. Most of the time they come from a non-technical background, purely from a business background. Not only that, they also come from a mindset of a typical software or their own legacy system or their practices with various different applications. And when we are trying to implement ERP software like Odoo or anything else, we always face that problem that, hey, this application has to work exactly the way I want. They constantly say that, and I ask them the question, what is that the way you want? And they fail to explain. I want it the way I'm doing it, but I don't know how exactly the process all the time should work, but I want it the way I have been doing it. And let's sit down and let's model it. They say, we don't know how to model. With us, we take the developers or people who have to document the requirement, and they start documenting with their own perception, their own ideas, heavily influenced by Odoo. And there is some kind of silo in both the end. The way the business is operating, the way the software has to be implemented, and the perception of the individual. And I was working through, I'll be sharing some of my own experiences working with both this team, and lately for last a year and a half I have been exploring this model, C4 model. With the C4 model I find some kind of a map in between that, both the ages, not to be hardcore process designing, too much of a documentation, and also be developer friendly. How we can balance between that too. Most of the time, the huge lot of problem that arises in implementation and may end up confrontation is more of a communication gap during the entire process. We try to address all the issues raised by the customer just to mitigate that. There would be less training challenges, but we end up with scope creep and lack of resources and plenty of things. So how can we address that? That's a big question that we are trying to address. At the same time, we also find, like most of the time we talk with some of the mid-level manager or senior level managers, and the end users are away from the development until we start training them towards the end of our project, the UAT. Many people would automate, all of a sudden they start popping up, and then they say, hey, even management doesn't know how actually we want our system to be, and those kind of things, you know. And so those kind of engagements, when it's not right from the beginning, you start having a lot of change orders, and that makes your software projects more complicated, and you start creating the fragments. And more than that, Odoo being very, very flexible as a system, that also turns out to make things more complicated at times. There are plenty of examples, maybe later we can look into that. Overall, all of us, we know the same story all the time, but the requirements being vague, a lot of customization, and all the stakeholders are not brought up right from the beginning to the end during the process. And then we start talking about talk with the BA and developers, they start talking about agile, and they iterate quite a lot, and they make an excuse with agile not to document. While if we read just for of this principle, definitely agile would say we have to interact with the people, but it is not saying that, hey, discard the process and tools. It is asking you focus more on the interaction, but keep up with your processes and your tools. Documentation or architecture is not an exception to interaction and the communication. One has to complement the other, but people try to make excuse quite a lot of time, and that turns out to be sometime backfiring us. Customer collaboration is important, but you need to also have some kind of blueprinting with you that both the party agrees during the customization, so that you don't fall into the trap. Just having like verbal understanding and documenting only with the tickets, but without actual architecture, is still not being aligned with the core manifesto of Agile. If we want to align with that, it's very important that we need a working software, but at the same time comprehensive document to back our software is equally important. Agile Manifesto all the time says that, but many a time we only focus on the first part of it, the left side of it, and forget the right side of it. We need to change, respond to the changes, but we need to have even the plan. Plan has to be there in front of us, even to follow that and to respond to the changes, so that we understand that what was our plan. It might be short, iterative, many times, okay, but it has to be. Now, the problem is the developers, when clients require a feature, they want it just next day. They start assuming that writing a software is like editing a document, and a lot of like you design a software, you test it, you deliver it, you ask for the UAT, you go into the deployment. In that cycle, we again constantly forget documenting it. Now the question is that an excuse, or is there a solution for that? Now basically, I come from a Lean and Six Sigma background. By default, I love documenting the processes and defining it, but also reiterating it. And I just don't stick with either Lean or Six Sigma, but I also come from a Agile background, so I love reiterating that. C4 model perfectly blends that, so I love it. It's very simple. Normally, C4 model is hierarchical and very lightweight framework, and it has only 4 major areas or 4 major lineup to build up a visual or system context, containers, component, and the code. These are 4 layers, and these 4 layers are designed for specific stakeholders. Now, if we look into one of the metaphors Simon Brown, the founder, uses all the time is something like our Google map. If I need to come to this venue, first definitely I would want to fly to Belgium, and then in the Belgium I want to come to Brussels, and come to this town, and then come to this venue. So that would be my cascade way to come to this particular venue. C4 model is exactly like that. The sponsor, the stakeholder, or the founders, or the top level management would always think in the big picture that ERP software has to get all the inputs intact, do my math correct, give me my reports correct. Those are few big picture. Now when it goes to the department, now there are some more to look into. What are the interactions it has to do, what are the API connection it has to do, what kind of data stream it has to manage with. Those kind of second layer, the containers, would talk about what are the different software applications that our system has to talk with. And then we come down to the component. As we are coming to the component, we start talking about the features, and we start talking about what are the business objects that it got to interact with, what are the master data that it has to align with. And then we come to the code, and then we start talking about the data structure and the relationship, and whole lot of inheritance and the behaviors and the methods and kind of thing that basically developers would want to talk into. C4 model basically talks in this 4 major blocks: the context, container, component, and the code. To keep it simple, high level, in case of Odoo as well, basically we start talking about the system level context and its own container level. We'll see with example what this 4 would look like. Now, in the contextual label, in the big picture, instead of like having hours and hours of discussion about this and that, and plenty of verbal communication, which is important, but unless and until we put it to some kind of picture, some kind of like a Lego play, puzzle and kind of thing. I don't if you know, with this Lego serious play is one of our approach of Lego's implementation of building the architectural diagram with Lego blocks. Here also we try to visualize that and keep it. The problem is in several iterations it starts changing, or there are some component, maybe sometime for the budget, sometime for complexity, sometime for length of time it takes to develop. Management want to review that and make the changes, and with that changes, how to keep up our own architecture up to date is the major question, major block. Many a time initially when we are developing SOW or when we are blueprinting and giving a solution, we make that through a Visio, or maybe we make through Lucidchart or some kind of application, and then later we don't have time to look into that. It starts getting obsolete. Instead, if you use code like PlantUML or Mermaid, or there are a couple of other coding languages for the architecture, this kind of diagrams generated through the code, and then you meet a version control of that code. Now you might be having the changes, but you make 1 line or 2 line, couple of lines of changes, your architecture still remains intact. That's the whole idea behind architecture as a code, is going to make things more simpler, more dynamic, and helps you update that system all the time. Okay, and then we go to the next level, from a context to the container. Again, this kind of diagram also you generate through the PlantUML. You can also use Mermaid, definitely, but PlantUML, and you maintain the code so that your diagram, whatever, even if you are making changes in the later stage of your development with a minor modification. And the beauty of this PlantUML is, once you give this to the user, even user can read and make the edit and changes. It doesn't need any sophisticated programming knowledge. It's mostly like a pseudo code. So any people who can read or can suggest that in this diagram I would like to have this modification in, you can just sit down and make a small changes. Your architecture remains up to date all the time. That's the whole idea, that not only the code and the software, but also our architecture should be up to date if we want to be agile all the time. That's the whole idea behind being relevant in the system and following the plan. Even if we are changing, our plans should change, but it should be dynamic. Then we go further, digging down into the component label. Like even the component label, you go ahead and you have a code. That code helps you maintain the components relationship in between the system. You are talking to the developer, and developer that you want the integration, you want the relationship between different modules and their interaction, or the data structure still has to come, but still you are talking only on the high level. Like many a time, I wouldn't always agree that the Simon Brown's approach of C4 model would exactly fit with a complicated software like ours. When we are working with Odoo, we need some kind of more. I'll also talk like how we can leverage that advantage and then build on our own experiences of implementing ERP. This is also built basically the code sample, and again this is built by Camunda. Camunda is other open source basically, if you come from a SAP background, SAP has a Signavio process management, process orchestration tool, and Camunda helps you make BPMN diagrams like this. This is also code based, but in XML you can build and then you can maintain the update. This is PlantUML based sequence diagram. Once you start building this kind of diagrams, all of these are built on at top of PlantUML. These are some of the examples of building your sequence diagram, or even the class diagram. Later I'll show you. With this class diagram was built with PlantUML again. So meaning thereby, from starting from the context to the class diagram, you can in every phases you can build that through the code. So the real advantage with that, developer will love it. I asked developer, they never want to go to Lucidchart and then do a BPMN. No, they don't want it. And why they don't want too many platforms, too many documentation thing? If it's in the Git, they can read. If they are making the changes, they can tell you, hey, here is a change that we are having, and then one single platform and the dynamism and update would be making things much more simpler and easy and intact. The whole idea still is, if in a building any modification has to be made, we need architectural approval, and then we go into the civil and do the construction. Software is nothing different. Our architecture might change, but that changes has to be adopted and documented, kept intact, so that we can refer any time. Again, this is just the revision part. So the whole idea behind that is blending that or bringing the agility in the architecture is equally important if we want our solution to be agile and customer friendly. At the same time, one has to go with the other. But what we need to really understand is, not in the C4 model, all 4 models are not for everyone. So first 2, level 1, level 2 might be more for the strategic decisions and maybe for higher stakeholders, and level 3 and level 4 is more for the tactical decision makings and more for the developers and stakeholders who are working. And that way, like every single diagram, every single architecture has its own purpose, whom to communicate with and who understands and where the alignment is made. To people who thinks in the big picture, or to the people who needs to know about every single data set and every single variable and their business logic to build a system. So from a big picture to a minute detail, C4 tries to cover all them. So all level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 has to go through, and we can use these 4 layers in different stages of Agile as well, either be it in the project kickoff or during the sprint planning or the backlog refinement or when we are onboarding the team. The best part, or one of the core reason with this kind of diagram I find, or the architecture I find, is it not only helps development and not only helps to tell the customer that here were the changes made and we have implemented it, also in the during the training, and even more so when there are the turnovers either on the developer side or and customer side. And both the side, it will be a lot easier for them to review and understand the system in the big picture before actually they go and click and input the data and try to see if that's working for them. So that also saves plenty of time in the training, not only the development, and of course whole when you have a synchronization in the communication and in your vision through architecture, that's going to benefit every one of us. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk, and I would love to interact with you, and also let's start using architecture as a code, and let's see what tools, what approach could benefit us and what can be done better. This is a question to you.
So we are passing to the questions.
Questions, also learning.
How much time do we have?
We have 10 minutes.
Okay. So basically my question, and I will have questions after that, is who is supposed to draw all those diagrams in C4? I mean, which role, like project manager, business analyst, client, developers? Like, because there should be someone who will create all of those diagrams.
I totally agree. It depends upon, sometimes it depends upon the competency of the person who does that. If they are coming from a functional background, they might be able to do the level 1, level 2, also level 3, but for level 4 they need some kind of technical knowledge of at least the relational schema and relationship between the business objects and all that kind of thing. So they need some a little bit more. So maybe with the support of a technical lead, project manager still can achieve that.
Okay, so I've been in every role that you described, like as a customer, as a developer for a very long time, as product, as business analyst, and I might just give my comment, so well, answering it. So basically the problem is, and sorry, I don't want to offend anyone, the problem is that usually entrepreneurs, owners of business, they don't care about developers. They don't care about development. They want to make more money. So they want features that will make them more money to optimize something, but in the end it's always more money. Then there are, on the other side of the spectrum, there are developers, and most of them, they don't care about business at all. They are not entrepreneurs. They thinking about creating code structures. So they always think on this tactical level, not on strategic one. And there is very huge gap.
Yep.
And usually a lot of projects fails because of this gap. Then there's basically project managers. And the problem is this majority of project managers, they are not either. They are not entrepreneurs. They are not developers. And if you try to put project managers, they're usually good in motivation of the team, like fixing some problems or on soft skill level with customers, like trying to calm them down, try to motivate developers, but usually there's still this big gap. And what I suggest that there should be basically 2 more roles between customer and project manager and developer. So basically you have product manager that you put very close to the customer. And the problem is, if you try to hire product manager from the market, 95% of them learned how to do it using books, so they basically cannot do it. And the only one way how to hire a good product manager, you need to hire someone who was entrepreneur before, and for some reason they failed, but they had a lot of hired employees, they paid salaries, borrowed money, they earned money in the way, but for some reason they decided to step down and to be hired now. Then you hire them, you put them very close to the customer. So basically right now for the developer, the customer is not real client, but the customer is product manager. And between product manager and project manager, you put in business analyst who using basically all of the tools that you showing and developing, because product manager will always try to understand like money thing from the business, like intention, how exactly what features is needed for customer to make more money, and then understand basically everything, like, it's like click. It should click like the full cycle of the business should be like clicked in the brain of product manager. Then basically product manager is speaking with business analyst to write everything in not in requirements, because requirements is very high level. Usually customers doing very bad requirements, so product manager doing good requirements, then business analysts doing all the good business analysis. It shouldn't be very long, it should be compact, not repetitive, but it should describe a lot of edge cases. This is the most important. It's like what can go wrong, because positive flow is very easy. Usually the problem is something conflicting with each other in some certain situations. I don't know, for example, there is task in progress, and then that employee left. Like, what will happen with it? Like a lot of stuff like that, like basically from different models. And then when all of that described and like drawn by basically only business analysts should use this tool, basically drawing all the schemas, or maybe BPMN, like it's business analysis, they love it. And then developers, you need to educate it a little bit about the business to explain not only what they're doing, but why they're doing, what exactly it will benefit the business. So basically, you build in this bridge, and like between like product manager, business analyst, project manager, developers, and they work as a team, understanding. And for me, I know I'm in this business for 20 years. This is the only way it can work. Otherwise, it's very random, and it's usually, there would be conflicts and
exactly
wasted budgets.
Okay. Any other inputs you have? Then
during the presentation you showed a UML generating program, and I saw the links in some of the files you showed. But can you what's the Git repo for the program?
Plant UML. You can check C4 model and the plant UML. Plant UML.
I saw in the URL it was like
I can send you. We can communicate. And I can share you all the resources.
Yeah. Because okay, that's basically it.
Please let's be in touch, and I can share you all the resources that I have. I totally agree your viewpoint, but again, what I see, two fundamental problem I figured out last couple of years. One, when we are designing the BA, even when they do a business analysis and then they try to build up architecture or the design, they tend to think or assume that this architecture is for the developer and for internal consumption, and they are not getting the stakeholder to participate in that architecture. It's primarily because most of the time they use some cryptic, their own self-originated notations, and they don't follow standards. Many a time they find it difficult because of this all kind of weird tools, SAS tools, either Moodleboard or Miro or Lucidchart, where you have a lot of flexibility, okay, and they tend to use everything, and one project and other, even in the same company, two people are not following the same notation, makes things a lot of complicated. And the developer, every single project managers, they are coming with their own notation, their own architecture, makes things a lot complicated. Notation would help. And not only that, customer has to participate in this entire picture. That will be making both the parties are in the same picture. And to keep update, code would be supporting. The other party who is in gap with this architecture, not just the developer, also the QA. QA, when they have to come later on the UAT, they are given the application and they are asked to enter the data, and they don't know how the application is working. Without the context, they start testing the software, and these days they start using, maybe in Odoo, fine with the unit testing what developer might put, again they might use with Playwright or any other end-to-end testing frameworks. Most of the time just with some of the inputs and trying to navigate through. But if they had understood the entire context, like what you said, business value would cascade till the UAT till the end, and that would be in advantage to all of them. So I think the big picture to cascade to the data structure label and the hierarchical notation would be of helpful. Here Simon Bryan or C4 model doesn't ever say that who has to do it, but it has to be done. Anyone who is finding comfortable can do it. What notation, what tool to use, they don't dictate, anything can be used, but at least if there is a common understanding about what kind of notation and what level of depth is covered and what is the objective of what label, which hierarchy, who are the participant of level 1, who are the participant of level 2, who is the participant of level 3, who is the participant of level 4. And there is a purpose for all the label. I think that gives more clarity and for the purpose. And yeah, the action item again. In SAP world, maybe because it's 50 years old, but they have a lot of architectural detail and plenty of publishing, plenty of books, plenty of resources on the architecture level. Odoo, being too much user-friendly software, we have a lot of demos and less of architecture, and there's a big gap with that architectural. There's documentation of Odoo's modules and the departments and kind of thing, and I'm intervening on that and trying to build. If you want to collaborate, I would open call, and we can collaborate and make these architectural documentation for the general public use. We can publish them. Maybe we can also have a talk with OCA, and OCA can take a lead on that with forming a small team so that every department could be having this ready to use architectural code at the same time ready to use module, and that would be a good in support for every one of us. With that call for action, let's collaborate, let's make our ecosystem, community and development all way good, top to bottom. Let's collaborate. That's all I have to say. Thank you.